Okay, we got the thumbs up.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Dick Harvard. In a moment, I'm going to ask to go around and everybody to introduce themselves here because I know we have at least one relatively new person here. This meeting is being recorded. And I ask everyone to use the mics because it's a large room and it'll help some of us in hearing. So the agenda that is posted, we'll begin check on public comment, and then I'll give a quarterly report, and then we'll ask Aaron to go through for the Raleigh Hills update and the traffic issues that are involved with that, and then a plan for public or for seismic safety, and then the financial report, and that should be the meeting. So, Aaron, do we have any public comment?
We did not have any public comments.
Okay, thank you. So let's start with introductions. Sunita, would you mind beginning, and we'll go around. Introduce yourself and why you're here.
Hi, my name is Sunita Garg, and I'm the school board member, vice chair this year, and I am representing the board. And also, I don't know if this is the time, but I wanted to thank everyone for your commitment and time, and I just wanted to make sure that there is no misunderstanding. The board would love to hear in-person presentation by the chair, like we have done in the past years. The board leadership agreed on that. In the past years, I think they came either once or twice in a year, and if that's what you would like to continue and if it would work with your schedule, we would love to hear from you guys. Thank you.
Hey, good evening. Ryan Bonsbach. I'm a budget or a bond accountability committee member. My day job outside of this is the budget director for the Forest Service Pacific Northwest region.
Hello, I'm Keith Hobson, a Bond Accountability Committee member. This is my first meeting, so I'm excited to be here. And I'm retired.
David Ramos, a Bond Accountability Committee member. This is my second bond. Looking forward to it. Outside of here, I'm a principal with Beam Development.
I'm Dick Harbert, the current chairman of the Bond Accountability Committee. I also served on the 2014 committee prior to this, and I'm retired from an engineering construction career.
I am John Mitchum. I'm retired. I had 42 years of engineering, construction management, and corporate safety director for a crane company here in the Northwest. And currently I'm the boys golf coach at Aloha High School and retired.
Hi there, Josh Durham, Bond Accountability member, and outside of this room, I'm the owner of a construction management consulting firm, Gamma Project Solutions.
Aaron Boyle, I'm the administrator for facilities development, and so I oversee all of the bond work. And I will bring the microphone around to you all so you can introduce yourselves.
I'm Casey Walatich, the Chief Facilities Officer for the district.
Gabby Urenda, Bond Communications Specialist.
Jeff Hammond, Senior Project Manager in Facilities Development.
Jason Murray, Construction Programs Manager, Facility Development.
Thank you, everyone, and welcome. Sunita asked if I would provide the oral report for the report that we submitted. So this is for the BAC report, Bond Accountability Report, that was prepared and submitted to the school board and superintendent last November. Now, because it was last November, there is some information that I will mention that was in the report that is now dated. And when we go through the progress performance review. Some of this will be updated on the progress that's happened since then. The previous bond accountability report was a summary closure report to conclude the oversight service by the 2014 BAC. Since that time, in March, the 2022 BAC, with its new members, has held two regularly scheduled meetings with the facility, the district facility staff. The 2002 Bond Accountability Committee is made up of 8 members, 2 of whom were carried over from the 2014 Bond Accountability Committee, including me, for continuity. I will say that the people that we have on this committee now have an excellent background in design, construction, and finance, and I think will serve the board well in this capacity. To prepare them, the transition efforts for these new members included, first of all, with the school board's agreement, we overlapped the 2 BACs for 6 months to help transfer the experience in oversight. We reviewed the BAC charter to make sure that everyone knew what our responsibilities were. The district staff outlined the 2022 bond scope, which primarily included the Beaverton High School replacement project, which amounts to about, or will amount to about $250 million. The Raleigh Hills Elementary School replacement project, that project should come in around $67 million. And the third major component is the deferred maintenance scope of about $120 million. The staff also took time to describe to us the key operating guidance that they operate under. Those are included in several major documents. First of all is the cost management and control plan. Second is the community outreach and communications plan. And they also went through the project change control procedures so that we could understand that process. Finally, we took tours of schools to contrast new schools, that is, understand what the current expectations are for a school, and the conditions of the older schools. So we went to Mountainside High School and to Beaverton High School. We also toured Sato Elementary School and the Raleigh Hills School. And I'll tell you, the contrast of 100 years between those schools told us why we were replacing them. Now, during our meetings, the staff has focused on the progress of major projects. On the Raleigh Hills School project, the architects, DLR Group, had completed their conceptual design and were expected to complete the construction documents by the end of October. Aaron will update us on that later. The Pence contractors were selected as the construction manager and the general contractor, and the land use permit was approved. With regards to Beaverton High School, BRIC, B-R-I-C Architects, completed the conceptual design and we're working on the construction documents with a 50% drawings due mid-November. The construction manager general contractor Skanska was selected for constructability reviews, estimating, and target value design assistance. They are to submit their guaranteed price, maximum price proposal in early 2024. And the Beaverton City Planning Commission approved the project in their August meeting. Now, I'll say that These projects are going to benefit, have benefited, and are going to benefit by the early engagement of the architects and the constructions consulting. And we commend you on doing this. Concerning our charter responsibilities, the BAC members agreed that the bond revenues are being used for the intended purpose to advance the work in alignment with the bond program goals. The staff reviewed its plan for reserves and contingency, which the BAC felt was a prudent approach. And while it's early on these projects, at the time, the contractors were exceeding their equity goals set by the school board for minority, women, service-disabled, veteran-owned, or emerging small business enterprises. The staff has drawn on its experience in producing new schools over the past 8 years to reduce long-term maintenance and construction costs through improved efficiency and innovative practices. Here are a couple of examples. First, the staff have refreshed their 2016 cost management and control plan for the 2022 bond program and have reviewed that program with the BAC. Second, the BAC was particularly impressed with the staff establishing a comprehensive database for all district building assets, assessing and documenting their condition, their remaining life, and the replacement costs. The important thing about this is that this information was used as a basis for developing the maintenance plan and budget for the 2022 bond scope. Regarding communicating key bond information to district stakeholders, the staff does a good job of presenting updates and photos to the BAC and posting that relevant information on social media. A new website was launched so that the community members can follow the project progress for each school. The BAC is also working with the staff to present meaningful and detailed information that assesses the performance of the 2022 bond scope. We have found that the staff is very responsive in answering our questions, and we appreciate that. BAC meetings are now scheduled for 6 times a year, and if needed, the BAC will convene special meetings. For each BAC meeting, we receive and review the status reports on the bond program prepared by the staff for the reporting period. So in summary, the committee finds that based on the information received, the program is in general compliance with the purposes set forth in the information about the program, which was provided to the voters before the 2022 election. Are there any questions? Well, good. Thank you, Sunita, for giving us the chance.
Thank you. I'm sure whoever is hearing gives us comfort in knowing that the staff is doing a great job and the committee is also doing a very good oversight work. And thanks for the time and presenting this. Thank you so much.
Aaron, are you next?
The first topic actually was yours, and it's the BAC quarterly report, the next one, if you wanted to talk about that at all. And sorry, I'll say this too, the television, I'm sorry, is not working. We have some technical difficulties tonight, so.
Just said all those nice things.
Yes. So I just had a slide in here for the next quarterly report being tentatively on May 28th, so I believe you
Okay.
covered most of that, so that's all that was for. So we had a question about Raleigh Hills. I believe, Dick, you had a question, or Randy had a question about some comments that came up during the land use approval process for Raleigh Hills. So I am going to have Eric come over and talk about the issue first of all, and then talk about what we're doing as a solution here.
Yeah, thanks. So one of the conditions of approval from our land use submittal was to submit to the city for what they called advisory comment for our traffic plan on the eastern parking lot, which is the vehicular, like parent
Excuse me,
pickup
Eric,
and drop off. Yeah.
we're not getting, is this screen?
We're having trouble with the TV is not working, so we've got it back there.
Okay.
It's in the handouts.
All right, well,
The slide shows.
don't be offended if I'm looking the other way.
I won't be offended at all. So, excuse me. So the city wanted to see a plan. We haven't submitted this yet. It'll go to the city prior to our actual occupancy. But they wanted us to provide a plan for them to provide advisory comment, no requirements from the city, but just advice to us for our traffic plan on the eastern parking lot, which is our parent pickup and drop off loop. So what you see on the screen and in your packet there is our anticipated staff locations, whether they're volunteers or school staff, is yet to be decided. But the red dots are where we intend to have staff stationed, just to make sure the traffic flow continues to move up. The idea is that there's queuing all along the outside, kind of those dark gray rectangles, are parent vehicles for pickup and drop off. So the idea is the ones that are further towards the top of the sheet, those staff can communicate with their radios, trying to identify what parents are there to pick up what students, so the students are ready to be picked up as the parents pull forward. Essentially, we're trying to keep all the cars moving forward. We have folks stationed at the crosswalks, just it works kind of twofold, one for supervision of those crosswalks for anybody that's parking and going across there, as well as keeping the traffic flowing forward. So, and then somebody up by the front entrance to greet the students as well as they come in the building. So this is our intended plan to show to the city, but this was, like I said, in response to one of the conditions of approval from land use. Yeah.
Has there been any thought about doing a pedestrian light like they did at Hazeldale for foot traffic coming across Shoals Ferry?
We'll have a full traffic signal at the new intersection there for vehicles and pedestrians with fully accessible crosswalks across Shoals Ferry there.
And can that be controlled by or is it just going to be the standard queuing? Then they'll just, whoever from the school staff will just hit the button when they get enough people lined up?
Yeah.
Okay.
There'll just be a typical pedestrian crossing.
So do you need to
button there.
show a traffic light as part of the traffic plan?
That is shown on our right-of-way improvements.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So we do have that traffic light planned there.
With regard to that, John's comment, is there going to be any modification of the lanes on Shoals Ferry Road?
Excuse me. So for pretty much our entire frontage, Shoals Ferry will be widened from 2 lanes to 3 lanes. So there will be a center turn lane along our entire frontage that isn't there currently.
Does funds for that come out of our budget? The
Yes.
2022 budget? Okay.
Yep, that's all within our project budget.
It was something we planned from the get-go, just because knowing the amount of traffic we have on Shoals Ferry and the traffic getting backed up from people trying to turn left in the parking lot was a big issue. So we really advocated to have that traffic light put in. And then the turn lane really was just a function of that. So-
Well, that's what I thought, and that's why I asked the question when Randy came back to me and said, well, that's really not part of our purview. That's Department of Transportation. I said, no, I think we're paying for some of that, so.
One of the things the traffic light does too is that it opens up the school to walking traffic from the neighborhoods across the street, which you currently don't have because there's no safe way to cross the street.
Any other questions about this or other questions about Raleigh Hills?
So there's no design change here. This is just a study showing them how it's going to work, right?
Yep,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah.
All right, great, thank you.
Are you going to provide any status on the Raleigh Hills project?
Yeah, we can cover that as part of the
Okay.
report.
Good, thank you.
Okay, next up, and our main agenda topic here for tonight, which will take up the bulk of the time, I think, is you all requested an update or a briefing on our plan for seismic safety. So I will go ahead with that. So a little bit of background for you all. And hopefully some of you watched the videos I sent out. I linked a video and a little article there in the agenda that Molly sent out, talking a lot about the Cascadia subduction zone. So for those of you who didn't watch it, the Cascadia subduction zone is an area off of the coast of Oregon, Washington, and Northern California. It's where we have these two seismic plates colliding right now. The Juan de Fuca plate and the North American plate. The Juan de Fuca plate is sliding underneath the North American plate. And what's happening over time is you've got these two plates moving into each other, and it's creating a tremendous amount of pressure. And at some point, what's going to happen, they say, is that these are going to release. It's going to slip, and it's going to create this subduction zone, which is the fault line where the slippage occurs. And this has happened. I see through the geological records, just it's happened a ton of time. Happens every few hundred years, really. And we're quite a bit overdue for this occurring. And so what they say here is a magnitude 9 event. There's a pretty strong possibility of it happening within the next few years. That says 12% in the next 50 years, which magnitude 9 is a significant event. That's what happened in Japan a few years ago with the whole Fukushima event. That was a magnitude 9 earthquake. And then magnitude 8, also significant, but the chances of that are even much more likely at 37%. So this is what we're talking about. This is what we're trying to prepare for here in the district with our facilities.
Is this numbering, I'm used to, maybe this dates me, is discussions about size of earthquake tied to the Richter scale. Is that old fashioned now?
No, the Richter scale, that's what these are. Magnitude 9, magnitude 8, yep. Like a magnitude 9, it's actually a logarithmic scale that they use here. So I believe a magnitude 9 is like 10 times stronger than a magnitude 8. If not more than that. I forget the exact number, but it's significantly more. And it's related to the amount of time that the earthquake takes place. But yes, that's the Richter scale. So these are some laws that we have here in Oregon. A couple different ones I referenced. So these are what we are hoping to achieve at Beaverton. You'll notice on both of them, they're tied very significantly to available funding. So subject to available funding, try and have your buildings upgraded, reducing seismic risk by January 2032. So that's a tall order, I'll say, for us, and even more so for some of our neighboring school districts. But it's something that hopefully this plan is addressing, and it's going to get us to that point. So, when looking at upgrading our buildings, we need to have a standard that we're trying to achieve. So, we have two different goals, one for new buildings and one for existing buildings. You can imagine it's a lot more efficient to integrate structural features into a new construction than it is into an existing construction. It's a lot more expensive to go back and retrofit than it is to do it upfront. So new buildings, we're building to an immediate occupancy standard, meaning the building will be fully functional and available to be occupied after a seismic event. It will not have structural damage. Existing buildings, we are targeting something a little bit less than that, and it's called a damage control range, and it's somewhere between life safety and immediate occupancy. So it's achieving life safety through all of our buildings.
Your definition of life safety is that being able to get back out, but not necessarily be reoccupied.
Yeah, meaning the building is probably going to survive. The building will be able to be reused, but not necessarily immediately. There might be repairs that have to take place afterwards. And these definitions, to be clear, are not my definitions. These are ASC 4113. It's the standard used when doing these seismic evaluations. So you'll see here on this screen, there's some scores down at the bottom. These are structural performance criteria scores. And so each facility will have a structural performance score and a non-structural score, which you can see here. So a few years ago, 2018, we hired KPFF, a large, well-known local structural engineering firm who has done a lot of our buildings. They came and evaluated all of the facilities. It was a high-level analysis. You know, they looked at as-built drawings, they did site visits to look at, you know, major structural elements of the building. And the ASC 4113 I mentioned is a standard used to do these seismic evaluations. So they have all these check sheets and it spits out a score for them at the end. And so looking at this matrix here, on the horizontal side you have structural performance levels, and on the vertical axis, non-structural performance levels. So non-structural is things like ceilings, typically light fixtures, bookcases are a pretty obvious example. Sometimes like piping throughout the building, like, you know, fire sprinkler piping, that sort of thing. If it's not supported, it's a non-structural item, but it is an item that's important and could cause injury, like if it were to fall down or something. Usually what you'll see is structural and non-structural performance scores are pretty closely correlated. It really has to do with what the codes in place at the time the buildings were built. So usually you get kind of a diagonal line on here. So we had all the facilities evaluated. All of these, by the way, are available on our website. I put the link there, but you can just go on the BSD website and search, you know, seismic reports, and you can see all these. You can see all the nitty-gritty details. So here is an example of what is on our website. There's 5 volumes currently. The volume 1 is really where all the good, interesting information is and all the scores. They also include cost estimates to retrofit all of the schools. So this is information that we used while planning the 22 bonds. Volume 4, we started to ask for a little bit more granular information because we recognized that a lot of our schools have been built over a significant period of time. So they're, you know, if we have a building that's 100 years old, some portions of that building are not 100 years old. They may be 20 years old, and those portions of the building may be just fine and not something we need to worry about or focus on. The example up there, I believe, is West TV Elementary School. You see the red portion was a gym with unreinforced masonry. And looking at the score of that building, we could identify, hey, this is the major risk portion of that facility. This is where we need to focus first. And so, as a matter of fact, we've fixed that specific issue at West TV. We also had volume 5, which is similar but more granular, and it talks about okay, well, if we're doing an incremental improvement to these schools and we have limited budget available, what are the really, really high risk things? And Volume 5 has a lot of good information on high risk areas. The example shown there shows at a lot of our schools that were built in kind of the 60s and 70s of these different pod designs, there are vestibules where kids are walking through. And those vestibules had glass, significant amount of glazing that was untempered. And that proved to be a significant hazard. If kids were walking through there, which they would be, if there's an earthquake, they'd end up having to go through there to get out of the building. It is a significant hazard to have that untempered glass. All this to say, we've got a lot of information available on our website. We know the state of a lot of our buildings. Yes.
Has the city of Beaverton or Washington County looked at any of these schools that would be suitable for reentry as emergency shelters that you wouldn't be able to go to school in?
Yep, great question, and let's put a pin in it because I'll catch that later on in the presentation. So this is a graphic I really like. This is from the long-range facilities plan, actually, and it's a nice graphic that the architect put together to show where all of the schools are at as far as performance. All the schools listed on the bottom, kind of grouped by elementary, middle, high school, option school, and support facilities. The higher their bar there, the better the school is expected to perform during a seismic event. Kind of halfway up the page there, you'll see that dashed line. That is the performance criteria for collapse prevention. So anything above that line, you would expect to not collapse during an earthquake. Anything below the line, it is at risk of collapse during a significant earthquake event. So you can see that is mostly older schools down at the bottom. The red band there is the damage control band I was talking about. So that is our target for renovations. And then you can see all of the ones that exceed that are all of the new schools that were constructed in the last bond. So, as you can imagine, this gives us a lot of good information as we look to plan future projects, especially putting together the current bonds. So, as I mentioned, there's a strong correlation here between the age of the facility and the structural performance score. So I've plotted out all the schools on this nice little graphic, and to demonstrate how we do facility planning for these projects. On this page here, we put this green box. These are all of the new schools. So you can see they're all built within the last 20 years, and their structural performance scores are all really high. So these are all schools that we feel are in good condition, don't really need any further work. This cluster of schools over here, you can see scores really high on the structural performance score, and they're also kind of old, kind of around that 60-year-old range. So these are schools that we have already upgraded. Like Aloha High School is one of these. Aloha High School has already been upgraded structurally and is in good shape. These down here are older facilities that score poorly, but not so old that they're good candidates for replacement. So these are schools that we're going to look at as prime candidates for repairs, seismic retrofits.
Aaron, I don't doubt this, but it surprises me a little bit on this, and it shows up on this chart and back on the bar chart that you had. We've got two schools, Raleigh Hills, Raleigh Park, and McKay, Raleigh Park. Let's see. Raleigh Park was built in 1959.
Yep.
And West Tualatin View in 1955. And they're rated about the same as schools built like Raleigh Hills and Beaverton and McKay back in 1925. That surprised me a little bit because you'd expect a newer school like that to
Yeah, I mean,
be better
1950 is
built.
not, and I wouldn't really consider too much of a new school. I mean, you have to think about when seismic building codes were put into place. I think it was like starting in the 80s, like late 70s, early 80s, is when they started to have seismic code as it related to school building codes. So there's probably not, structurally, there's probably not a significant difference between any of those schools, I guess is the point. But yeah, I agree, actually. It should be, you should see some distinction there, but.
Yeah.
The older buildings are also often added on in different editions, and that plays into this story too, versus those 55 buildings may not have been.
That's a good point. Like McKay, McKay being 1929, that's not all of McKay that we know today. It was probably 2 classrooms and, the office or something.
Good.
Okay, let's see, back to this one. So on this slide, I showed, these are the group of schools that we feel are good candidates for repairing. Meaning, they have a meaningful remaining life cycle to the facility. It's not something we can feasibly tear down anytime soon and replace, so we should be repairing them. These ones in this little circle here, these are the 6 middle schools included in this bond for repair. Which, and to go back to the bar chart, let's see if I can, my mouse, oh yeah, here we go. Oops. So the 6 middle schools are these ones. So you can see there's 5 of them that are right at below the collapse prevention line, and then 2 that are just hovering right above it. So those are the main projects included within this bond. These schools over here are the ones you start to talk about when you're considering whole school replacements. They're very old facilities and they score really poorly seismically. So here you can see these are several schools that are included in this bond. Obviously, Beaverton High School is the full tear down and rebuild along with Raleigh Hills. Barnes Elementary School, also very old and in poor condition. We're not replacing the entire school in this bond, but what we are doing is replacing the gym and cafeteria in whole, and would hope to then replace the rest of the facility in the next bond. So it's an incremental whole building replacement is the goal. So our roadmap to seismic safety. There's 3 actions that I've shown that we can take with each facility. We're going to repair some of them, we're going to replace some of them, and some of them do not require any action. So you can see here, we've got 34 schools in the repair category, 12 in the replacement category, and 14 in the no action category. When it comes to repair, there's also some nuance to how you can go about that. I'll mention a couple of examples, specific examples about how we've been doing this. 5 Oaks, it was not the lowest rated. Call that was one of the ones just hovering right above the line. However, 5 Oaks did have a roof that was failing. So at the beginning of this bond, the roof was leaking like crazy. It was just old. It was way beyond the end of its life. It was scheduled in this bond to get a new roof, and we made the decision to do the seismic improvements at the same time. There's a ton of efficiency to doing seismic work and roof replacement at the same time. I'll give you a brief here on what a seismic improvement looks like for those of you who don't understand. So what you want to have happen, the earth is going to be moving, right? You want the whole building to move at the same velocity. The footings are going to move when the earth moves. You want the walls to move with the footings, and you want the roof to move with the walls. So when you go into these schools, you're upgrading the footings, you're putting in new shear walls, you're making sure the shear walls are tied to the footings, you're doing roof level diaphragm strengthening so the roof doesn't buckle, it's staying rigid, and so that it's attached to the walls. So there's a lot of work that happens at the roof and just below the roof. And if you do it separate from a roofing replacement, you end up having a lot of costs go into roof repairs, right? So if you can partner those together, you save a lot of money. So that's what we did at Five Oaks. Last summer, we completed the seismic upgrades there below roof at Five Oaks and re-roofed half the school. And then this year, we're completing those upgrades and completing the other half of the roof. So you pair them together, much more efficient and cost effective. McKinley Elementary is a second example here. So McKinley was not scheduled for a seismic upgrade in the 2014 bond, but it was scheduled for a roof upgrade. We didn't actually have any specific seismic money for it, like I said, but we were able to go ahead and add roof level improvements at McKinley during the roof replacement. So right now, McKinley is partially seismic upgraded. It has roof level strengthening done, and it is now on our list it's near the top of our list for consideration for additional funding to go back and finish the below roof level work and tie everything together. Third example, I talked about a little bit already, actually, which was West TV. It has a poor score seismically, and it's old. It's it'll be a strong candidate for replacement when we get around to looking at that. But in the meantime, we were able to do an incremental seismic improvement, which involved going and upgrading the gym. So the gym had these infill panels, which were unreinforced masonry, and we essentially reinforced the masonry. We created infill panels. Those were dangerous because they're a risk of collapsing. So we addressed that concern. Replacing a school is another option, and this is a whole broader discussion, but certainly there's a lot of criteria that goes into this. I would suggest anybody that's really interested, check out the long-range facility plan. Along with that, I noted on here that we are looking to start a committee of sorts that's going to look at long-term facility considerations. So there's an application I linked there for people who might be interested in being a part of that. And this is something we will also do as part of planning for the next bond at the conclusion of this bond. So one component that we look to when planning these projects is getting matching funds from the state of Oregon. They have a program called the Seismic Resiliency or Seismic Rehabilitation Grant Program. They award up to $2.5 million per project. So they accept applications usually once or twice a year, and this is something we've been pretty active in submitting applications for. In the last bond, we received almost $7.5 million. We got grant money for Aloha High School, Beaver Acres, and Cooper Mountain, and definitely aided in the funding of those projects. So just in December, we did submit one for Mountain View, which will begin its seismic upgrades this summer. $2.5 million per school. Oh, it's more of a practical maximum. So what has happened here is we actually haven't gotten any grants the last several years. It's just the demand for the grant money is so far exceeds the amount of funding that they have available. We've been told it's unrealistic we'd get more than one at a time. And, it's been unrealistic for us to even get one up till now, so.
Aaron, quick question on, when you're doing some work and you're getting funds from the state specifically for the seismic thing. Can we ever, is it allowed to mix colors of money to accomplish a project? Like if you were going into one school and you got a grant to do that, and you realize if I spent just a little bit more money, I could achieve higher value on there, can you bring in funds, say, from the maintenance budget of 2022 bond?
Yeah, absolutely. So Mountain View Middle School, I'll use this as an example. We just submitted an application for that one. Our total project budget is something like, let me look at the number. It's significantly more than the 2.5 million we might be granted. Yeah, 16-ish. Let's see. Mountain View Seismic, it's 20.5 million is our project budget right now. So that includes all of the seismic upgrades and all the other stuff we're going to be doing along the way. So we're doing lots of replacement of the electrical infrastructure in the school. So that's bond money that's coming in to support the project. Yeah, anyway, so we hope to get some grants from the state. We haven't, in this bond, we haven't gotten one yet. And I'm hopeful we will for Mountain View. Really, the budget for our 6 middle schools we're upgrading is starting to look a little bit tight at this point, short of any grant money. We assumed we would be able to get a few grants at least. So I'm hopeful that we will. Okay, this slide here talks about a little bit outside of, or this is more of the operational side of things. So John asked about using our buildings as shelters. So we have worked with the Red Cross actually regionally and designated several schools as emergency shelters. And so there are agreements in place for those. So they'll be able to come in and use them. Like I know Aloha High School is one. I believe all the new schools are actually. It was part of the bond commitment that the new schools would be constructed in such a way that they would be available as community shelters. Beaverton High School certainly is being designed that way right now. Does that answer your question?
That 3-frame picture reminds me of in the 50s, we did that for nuclear attack.
Yeah, that's right.
Same thing.
Yeah, I wonder how effective that would have been.
When we do advocacy for bond funding, we say that it's going to be a public safety space.
Yep.
You know, when we do seismic upgrades. Now, when we talk about new schools, yes, but the life safety one, will they also become a public safety spaces or just the new schools?
So I would say it depends. For instance, so in order to be eligible for these grants, the Seismic Rehabilitation Grant Program, you actually have to upgrade the high occupancy spaces in the facility to immediate occupancy. So Aloha High School, for instance, we received the grant as part of that project, which means the whole school was constructed, or all of the large areas of the building. So the places you'd use as a shelter, right? The gym and cafeteria and commons and all that stuff. Those are all constructed as immediate occupancy, and those are all part of the Red Cross agreement to be available as a shelter.
Okay. So is there a list of schools that would be like anywhere in the bond webpage that would be?
You know, that's a great question, a great point. There's not one on the website. So that's something we'll talk about and look to
Thanks,
communicate.
yeah.
Great question. Let's see. The next bullet here, I mentioned ATC 20. This is a code that has to do with evaluating facilities post-earthquake. So myself and I think about half my team are ATC 20 certified to go out, you know, say for instance there's an earthquake. We can go out and actually tag the buildings and say, you know, this one's good, this one's not good, this one, you know, is a maybe. Let's get an engineer out here to look at this one, that type of thing. So this should aid in recovery and resiliency, and if there is an earthquake, we should be able to get some of these things back online pretty quickly and available for use. The new schools, the immediate occupancy schools, by and large, have features beyond just the structural side of things, like they have large capacity generators, they have connections to hardened connections to infrastructure, they have exterior hookups on the building so that like water could be brought to the building, like with a water truck, for instance. If your local water is not working, we can hook a water truck up to the building and feed all the showers and plumbing in the kitchen and that sort of thing. There's designated emergency outlets in those shelter areas like commons and gyms and things. A lot of features that make it to where it would be comfortable to use in the event that you're not having any outside infrastructure coming to the building. And then I linked our website here just for reference. There's a lot of things that we do as a district to help prepare students for an earthquake if it were to happen during school hours. Just a little diagram there showing the drop, cover, hold procedures that they train for in the schools. And yeah. So conclusion here, we've got a lot of really good information about our facilities. We're using that information to reduce the risks, the highest risks where we can, and we're trying to have efficient, cost-effective plans to upgrade all of those facilities. Achieving the complete seismic safety will definitely require at least one more bond in 2028, hopefully, and certainly getting those grants from the state would be a big help as well. And then BSC facilities are a community asset and available as a shelter. So to Sunita's point, I think we need to clarify which ones should you run to if you need a place to stay. And with that, we're open for questions.
Given the fear you put in us with those first couple slides on the 6 that are getting improved, what's the overall timeline to get those addressed?
Yeah, let's see. We have a schedule. I wonder if it shows the whole meal deal here. Okay. It's over the course of this bond. So when we're doing these upgrades, say Mountain View or Five Oaks. So Five Oaks, we did about half the improvements last summer. We're finishing it this summer. Mountain View, we're doing half the improvements this summer and finishing it next summer. They're all large enough facilities that it's really not reasonable to put that much work in place over one summer. So each of them is split up over 2 summers, and it's sort of a waterfall. So we've got Five Oaks, obviously, Mountain View. We're doing Meadow Park is the next one, and then I believe Cedar Park is after that. And yep. So, yep, that's right. Yeah, all of the Park Middle Schools are the same footprint.
And given you guys are always obviously thinking of efficiencies, are they all designed yet? Or is there procurement for design? Is there a way to, I guess, the ability to quote unquote fast track it, both from a design standpoint, once the design's done? Is there a procurement efficiency to maybe having the steel bought ahead of time? Hopefully there's efficiency with lower cost buying it now versus we see another spike in inflation on steel.
Yeah, that's a great question. We've run in, the 4 later schools are all the same prototype middle school. All the Park Middle Schools plus Whitford, they're the same footprint. There's maybe some opportunity for that, but the reality is all the schools were built by different contractors in different years. Although they look really similar, they're not precisely the same, and procuring materials that far ahead of the time, you'd run into a lot of coordination challenges, I think. What we are trying to do right now, at least, I had a whole meeting about it today actually, was trying to develop efficiencies when it comes to the design process, at least for the schools. So like I said, all the Park Middle Schools are the same, and we're looking at implementing the same strengthening scheme at all of those schools to really make the rest of the process quite a bit more efficient, similar to how we did the prototype elementary schools in the last bond.
Thanks.
Hey, if I understood the scores right, the scores are looking at the structural. scoring for?
Yes, correct, yep.
So what's being done on the non-structural, or is there a parallel effort on the non-structural, or will that be rolled in with structural projects?
Yeah, good question. It was challenging for me to display all that, but yeah, we address it at the same time. So when we're going in to deal with, so Mountain View, I'll use it as an example, we're doing all the structural upgrades this summer. We do all the non-structural upgrades at the same time. So a big one at Mountain View was the ceilings in the school were really dingy and old and a hazard seismically. So we're replacing all the schools, and that's actually a significant cost as part of that project. It's also a grant requirement for the SRGP grant is dealing with the non-structural elements as well.
Well, thank you, Aaron. This is a very important subject because it really deals with the safety of students and faculty that work in these schools. So I'm pleased. And I thought the video link that Molly sent around, and do look at it if you haven't seen it, was very complimentary of what you're doing here. So I congratulate you for that.
Thank you.
Thought that was good.
Aaron, I have one question.
Yep.
I don't know if you know the answer, maybe, but are we looking at other funding streams for seismic upgrades other than state? Are there any, or are we looking into it?
Yes, is the short answer. It gets complicated. I believe there's some federal money through the infrastructure program. That's something we've been talking a lot about lately.
There is
so
federal money.
We're not sure. We're trying to wrap our hands around that right now. There may be.
Maybe you can tell me about it, because I might be able to do some advocacy for you.
Yeah, that would be great. How about we'll get back to you on that one?
Okay.
It's something we've been looking at.
All right.
I'm interested
Thanks.
in.
This isn't on the agenda, but I think it's relevant, a relevant question for you and Casey. Can you give us, since this deals with natural disaster and damage, can you give us a little summary damage report from the recent storm on 72 schools, not on each one, but on schools in our district?
Yeah, I was hoping to do that right at the end, if that's okay, right at the end. I was hoping to do that right at the end of the agenda.
Okay, enough seismic. So one item, this was not in the packets that I sent out to you all last week. This was an added topic that we want to discuss today, which is a project we have underway right now, Southridge High School artificial turf. So a little bit of background, context for everybody. We have 6 high schools. 2 of the high schools, Sunset High School and Mountainside High School, have artificial turf, baseball, softball, and stadium fields right now. At the other 4 high schools, we have artificial turf stadium fields, but not softball or baseball. And in Oregon, having natural grass fields for softball and baseball becomes problematic over the winter. They become largely unusable. And in this bond, we have plans to convert those fields at those 4 schools, Aloha, Beaverton, Southridge, and Westview, to artificial turf. This will just make the fields much more usable and safe. This summer, we have plans to do Southridge, converting the natural turf, baseball, softball at Southridge, the varsity fields only, to artificial turf. These were budgeted at about $2 million per school. So total for both fields at Southridge was $2 million. As we have gotten into the design, very far into the design, as a matter of fact, it's become apparent that budget was not adequate for these projects. There's a lot that didn't get included in that $2 million. Primarily the costs associated with stormwater management on the projects. Southridge was constructed really before current stormwater requirements were in place through Clean Water Services. And so when we're going in and dealing with these fields, we're having to sort of overcompensate and really treat a significant amount of stormwater on the projects. And what that looks like for the two fields is these really giant underground detention facilities and treatment facilities, like literally 5-foot diameter pipes, really the length of the baseline of each of these fields. And the cost associated with that is equally substantial. So Southridge, we just got the costing in on it this week, and this is why I added it here at the last second. But it's a project we had scheduled for this summer, and really in order to stay on schedule with this project, we're going to need to begin to order those materials pretty quickly.
I got a question on that. The artificial turf, that doesn't percolate water through? It's almost like a solid a sheet?
Yes, that is how Clean Water Services sees it.
And it's designed that way?
Yes, it is. Yeah, and it's not just the turf material itself. It's the whole substructure that comes along with it.
Okay.
You have really thick rock sections that are compacted, and it becomes an impervious surface as you construct it.
Most often have this treat subgrade as well, which makes it.
Yeah, the cement treatment is a part of this cost that I'm talking about.
Yeah, and that's included though in the Beaverton High School project?
For the fields, so when we're starting to look at the cost of these artificial turf fields, it's something that will need to be included in there, yes. And so what we're talking about here tonight is that we're going to need to increase the budget for these turf projects.
Yeah, we're planning to, we wanted to visit with the committee tonight and kind of explain the process, because this will be a similar thing when we get into the other schools, Aloha, Westview, even Beaverton High School. And what we're wanting to do is be able to address any questions that you have about this cost increase before we present the information to the school board to get the budget increase. So we wanted to be able to just present why we're going to the board for these cost increases and be able to answer any questions that you may have of why the increase. So I don't know if there's any specific questions that, say that again.
When you made the budget and you had a buffer amount, is that in that?
So for Southridge, the current project budget for Southridge is $3.5 million to those fields. Right now, our projected costs to do the Southridge project is roughly 5.2 million.
Right.
And so it exceeds the project contingency for the Southridge turf fields.
But
So-
then you have a general contingency amount too, right?
For the entire bond, yes,
Yes.
correct.
That's
So-
where the increase would come from.
That
The-
would be,
yeah.
okay.
Yep.
Yeah, and so just to the increase, it really comes out of kind of three buckets for the increase in this project. One is the cement amendment. That's a big, significant cost. The stormwater treatment is the biggest piece of it, nearly $1 million increase just for that. And then the contingency increase here is just to absorb any kind of things that maybe need to be improved with the parking lot or unforeseen conditions or those kinds of things.
How much have we tapped into it, the contingency amount?
Great question. So right now, the current contingency balance for the bond is a little over $66 million.
Right.
We've not used any of the contingency. Well, I take that back. We used a little bit for the Aloha project. It was slightly under $1 million. But at the current balance is $66.4 million. And we'll go over this more when we go through the financial report, but we feel really good about that right now. Raleigh Hills obviously is already committed. It's under GMP within the budget, not using contingency. We feel really good about Beaverton High School right now, which we'll have a bigger update on that one later, but we don't expect to use any program contingency for Beaverton High School at this point. So I'll just say,
Just clarification for me, just so that I followed you right. You need an additional $1.7 million for Southridge,
correct.
and do you anticipate the same magnitude of increase for Aloha, Beaverton, and Westview?
Correct. It'll actually, the magnitude of those ones will actually be slightly larger because Southridge's budget is 3.5 million right now. In each of theirs are 2 million. So ultimately, and this, we'll come back later and talk about Aloha, Westview, and Beaverton. We've got a little bit more time on those ones, so we'll deal with those separately. But yes, ultimately, we expect them all to be the similar situation.
Okay. So total, you're talking $7-8 million for this issue.
Correct.
overall.
Yeah.
There's nothing from the turf providers that can help with the stormwater?
No, this is a requirement from the city of Beaverton and Clean Water Services. It doesn't really necessarily have anything to do with the turf. It's the requirements to treat the water from the stormwater plan and all of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Is it treating the water or just holding it? There's a huge difference.
It's both, and it's two separate. I mean, it's one system. It's different elements of the same system, right? We're putting these big chambers which detain the water, but then we're also having the filtered vaults that treat the water.
To be able to put it into the stormwater system, then.
Correct. Yep.
I would add in my other life, I'm experiencing this in another district on another school project, and these newer stormwater treatment requirements are really within the last like 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know when that $2 million budget was set, but these are newer enhanced stormwater treatment things that folks are going through.
Yeah, before that, in my previous district, we put in almost 1 million square feet of turf, but we had just beat the new stormwater requirements.
It's new.
And you're right, they came out in 18 or 19 or whatever they were. So these are new things that we didn't know when we the district established the budgets for these projects.
And I would note, just for the bond accountability, this doesn't just impact our athletic projects, right? This impacts all of our projects that have major exterior improvements, right, moving forward, so it's just.
Yeah, that's right. It's really anytime you create new impervious areas, you're having to treat it and detain it. Okay, any more questions on that? Otherwise, I'll jump into the financial report.
It would be nice to know what the scope is then, because if there are more projects that might need.
Oh, sure. So what Jeff means is like, say Beaverton High School. We're going to create new impervious area, new parking lots. This isn't an additional cost necessarily for that project. We've got that handled already. It's dealt with in terms of the design of the school. This is really the challenge with the budget is for the turf projects.
Just the turf project?
Just the turf projects.
Okay, so 4. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
And here's a couple nice pictures. This is the baseball field. And what we have shown here is one neat thing for Southridge is the footprint of the field actually gets quite a bit larger from what it is right now with grass, and it creates this a whole soccer field overlay on the new turf section. So it's not just creating baseball and softball fields, it's also creating an all-weather soccer field for them to use. And softball field. Okay. Financial report.
I got one other question for you.
Yeah.
When I was in the city of Portland, there was a state mandate for monitoring your stormwater runoff, and you had to pay for a permit to get that, and then send in quarterly reports. Is that going to be part of this whole thing?
Yeah, I think you're talking about the 1200C and the NPD, I can't remember. National Pollutant Discharge Emissions something. Yes, that's a part of the project. Yeah, it's part of the permitting project on all of them right now. We have to go through the 1200C process with
Yep,
DEQ. And there's a whole lot of stuff that goes into it, including monitoring
Yes,
during the
yes,
course of
I know
construction.
quite well, so, yeah. So you'll have a single source discharge off of those fields?
We will comply with the requirements of the permit. I can't.
That was a good answer.
Yeah, I think it's multifaceted. I think there's multiple filter sections of it to comply with and change out and maintain, and then the
You can use Baker tanks
Yeah.
too, and that was in,
Yeah.
I know that is part of the Southridge plan is the Baker tanks. I saw that in the budget, so.
And is Beaverton gonna be able to dump into the creek that runs underneath the football field?
I believe, Jeff can correct me, I think we're building a,
It doesn't dump directly.
Yeah.
I mean, not all of it goes directly into the street. It's obviously detained and treated and then discharged into whatever stormwater facility is close. The parts of the facility shed to a central treatment plant that's associated with downtown Beaverton, so we're lucky we'll utilize that for the northern section of the building, but everything on the south side, yeah, it goes to different stormwater, pipes, which would eventually end in that. I don't think that water doesn't go to the stream because it's actually a stream that runs over the back of the property, which you wouldn't want. I don't think it dumps right into that.
Okay, well, you got that stream underneath the athletic fields at Aloha.
Yeah, Butternut Creek.
Yeah.
Yes, that is gonna be interesting to design around. Yeah, but to Jeff's point, I mean, the permit, the DEQ permit will have erosion control drawings as part of it, and it'll have that covered. Okay, financial report. Okay, on our, this thing's so hard to deal with. Our executive summary. And this is all, should be in your packet in front of you too, if you don't want to watch me fumble around on the screen up here. So under budget perspective, great news. Reflected in this report, as part of the $66 million in contingency, we have added $2.1 million in interest earnings for the last quarter. So that's really great news. Definitely, we're being helped out by the high interest rates right now. As a refresher, when we sell the bonds, we did half the bond sale already. That money gets invested through different state-approved vehicles, and just because of the high interest rates right now, and mostly just because of the amount of money we're talking about, getting some pretty good interest returns that goes right back into the contingency, and we'll continue to see that too. We also received a little bit of money back from the Energy Trust of Oregon, so definitely looking for ways to capitalize on the bond and extend the resources available to it. So Energy Trust provides rebates and incentives for doing different energy incentive things throughout our buildings. And we transferred $400,000 from the Westview High School modernization project to the Westview High School office relocation project, and that's really just transferring within projects to what made the most sense to execute the work. So we decided to bring forward some of the work associated with the modernization project and do it this summer as part of the office relocation. As far as schedule goes, this was just a notice that the Aloha High School office relocation schedule was bumped out a little bit to be complete on February 29th, and we'll talk more about that one later. Under challenges and opportunities, finally got an opportunity on here. One thing we're seeing in the market right now, we're in the middle of buying out a lot of projects, doing a lot of bidding, and one thing that we have seen is a lot more subcontractor bids we're receiving on projects. So really good for us. It's definitely reflected in some of the bid numbers we've seen on projects lately. So like earthwork, for example. A couple of years ago, we were getting maybe 1-2 bids if we were lucky on big projects, and some of the big projects we just recently bid, we were getting 6 and 7 qualified bids, and really good. Really happy to see it. Yeah, buyer's market. We're not quite there yet. Don't get ahead of ourselves, but hopefully soon. Okay. God, this is going to be impossible to read here, but we highlighted for ease of reading the changes. The two here on the first page, those are just the Westview. It just shows that 400,000 moving from the modernization budget to the office relocation project. Oops. Then on the second page, we just initiated a new roof or a new project, which is an HVAC upgrade at Aloha High School. We allocated the budget within project group number 13 there, nutrition services upgrades. We've got a project to install bottle fillers district wide. We just we initiated that project. And then down at the bottom was the contingency, the interest revenue going into that contingency fund. Oops. Just the updated financial statement shows the additional revenue from interest and from ETO. These are just all the record keeping transfer pages. Here's our project schedule. Equity performance numbers. This is something we're working on a lot on right now, and the volume right now is pretty low, which is why you're seeing the numbers kind of below our target. And hopefully within the next couple months, we'll see a really big spike here as we start to get actual information and getting subs bought into these projects.
Aaron, on that dip there on the orange line, is that primarily because we've issued new contracts, but we don't have the participation from small firms yet in there? So we've increased budgets being spent, but the firms just aren't hired yet?
It's some of that, and it has to do, I would say, a little bit more with us taking a closer look at how we're calculating these numbers.
Okay.
And we're going to talk more about this in the next couple of months.
Yeah.
So I don't want to give a spoiler alert here, but we're switching our reporting to a much more granular method of reporting, where we have a lot more detailed information about who these firms are and how they're coming to work for us and things. So that's why that number is like that. And like I said, we're in the middle of buying out or middle of subcontracting for Beaverton and Raleigh Hills and Stoller and Mountain View, and in the next couple months, the commitments are going to jump significantly, and it's really going to have a big impact on that number. Okay, project updates. What you've been waiting for. So Beaverton High School, this is the big project we've got going on in the bond. They've completed 50% construction documents. Right now, we're just waiting on some finishing touches to final construction documents. The main push, there's been a couple, is we're getting going on construction for the Merle Davies building. So abatement is complete on the building. They're getting ready to start tearing it down. So next week, we're gonna be on site tearing that thing down. So big milestone there. This was all part of that early work amendment, number 5, that was approved in December. So that almost $3 million was really for the abatement and demo of Merle Davies, along with general conditions and several long lead procurement items for the project. Of note, electrical gear right now we're seeing really ridiculously long lead times for, so we're trying to buy as much of that as early as we can. Doing the same thing at Stoller and Raleigh Hills and a number of other projects. Guaranteed maximum price proposal, you'll see there, expected January 2024, so that's right now. We're in the heat of that one right now, so we've We've been going through it almost every day. So, like I said earlier, we feel really good about where we're at right now. We fully expect that we're going to be establishing a GMP on budget for Beaverton High School.
And we're still on target to bring that to the board for approval at the February meeting.
So, yes, that is going to be a big contract, and looking forward to having that GMP in place.
Aaron, when will Merle Davies start coming down? When will people start seeing that? Because that'll be one of the first things that will indicate that action is happening.
Absolutely. Monday of next week. What else do we have on here? A lot of logistics we're working on, of course. And then on the bottom right there, the students worked on designing some hard hat stickers for the project team. So they designed these and the team all voted. Which one did they pick, Gabby?
It's not public yet?
It's not official yet.
Oh, okay.
There was a public voting, but it's close.
It's one of those five.
Yeah, it's one of those five.
Okay, any other questions on Beaverton? Bottom line, we're in good shape on Beaverton, starting construction soon. Feel really good about where we're at.
I think for me, Aaron, and this is nothing, it doesn't have anything to do with board approval. It would be nice to see a high-level summary of what was the contingency percentage that was set up, how much of the GMP is allowances, just that, once you guys get through the heat of the moment that I know you're in, it'd be nice to see just a high-level summary of what that budget looks like, how much got, allocated to actual subcontracts at this phase and all that stuff, because $250 million or whatever the GMP is going to be, there's still a lot of buyout that happens, right? So at some point, in your free time.
We can do that, yeah. I can tell you now, it's mostly built on subcontractor bids. Mostly. I mean, there's very few allowances we're considering for the project, so Skanska did a really good job of putting work packages together. But yeah, absolutely, we could give a more detailed look at that. Okay, Raleigh Hills. Raleigh Hills, I don't know that we have a ton of updates on the project. Actually, Pence is doing the project. We're already under GMP. We already have land use approval. We're getting ready to submit building permits soon.
We've submitted for all of our permits. We have some approvals back, some comments back already from the city and the county. So permitting seems to be moving along pretty well.
Our big focus right now is, getting it bought out and getting some middles going. But also, the students from Raleigh Hills are going to be going to Greenway for the next 2 years. So it's coordinating and getting Greenway ready to accommodate the extra load. So that's been a major focus for us right now.
Hey, on the demolition of both those schools, is asbestos abatement going to be one of the first things, and how long is that going to take, estimated?
Oh boy, what's your estimate?
Raleigh Hills, it's I might have to look real quick.
3 weeks?
Right around there. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we're assuming the schedule has the actual structure teardowns starting in August. So
Okay.
that gives us time after school ends to move out, them to do the abatement and set up kind of their general work, site work, get ready, and then construction. The actual structure demo should start in August.
Yeah. And as far as Merle Davies, they've got some circular windows that are there. Is there any historical value that anybody wants anything out of Merle Davies for keepsakes or to reuse anywhere?
Yeah.
that you know of?
You know what? That's a
Anybody brought anything up for that?
So there's a committee, Jeff should answer this question when he comes back, but there's a committee, they call it the Brave Committee, and they've been pretty involved with the school to identify things of historic meaning, worth preservation, things that should be incorporated into the construction of the new building, whether
Okay.
through art or whatever. So yes, that has been a big focus of what they've
Okay,
been working
good.
on. And anything that was desired to be salvaged from Merle Davis has been or will be as they go through with the demolition.
Okay.
So Aaron, is that committee made of community members or staff or who's it?
It's both.
I can jump on that.
Oh yeah, Gabby, thank you.
Yeah, so the committee is actually made up of staff. Some students are also part of it and some parents as well. So staff, students, teachers, they meet usually, I want to say like once a month, but Jeff can confirm that as well. They made great progress and they should be wrapping it up soon. Their work will be continuous, but their meetings are now kind of fading.
Okay, Stoller Middle School. So refresher is at Stoller Middle School. It's our largest middle school. We're installing an additional gymnasium and 4 classrooms there this summer. So Kirby Nagelhout is the contractor for this project. We have removed all the portables from the site already. They were actually relocated to Beaverton High School, so all the kids who were in Merle Davies now live in the former Stoller Middle School portables at Beaverton High School. That work will start probably a little bit before summer starts at Stoller. And that contract, the guaranteed maximum price, is on budget and it's going to the school board for approval next week. So really happy about the progress on this one. And we got planning approval already too. This is Washington County and they issued the land use decision already. So we'll be working on permitting. Aloha High School. So this is under construction right now. It has made a really big difference on site. I'm really excited for this one to open. Framing's done. Roofing is mostly done. That's been a big challenge right now, actually, as we're completing the project. But interior MEP is underway. Finishes in several areas. I mentioned it was delayed a little bit. I noted on here there are a few quality issues on the project, mostly around concrete. There's a layout issue that had to be resolved and some issues with quality that we found in a few areas that also had to be fixed, which really kind of delayed things. Not a cost issue for us. It is for the contractor, but it's something that we've been working with them to fix and try and stay on track here. So right now, substantial completion is February 29th. Lost a week last week with all of the ice and everything, so I think we're going to lose another week on that substantial completion date. They're shut down. But we are hoping for next month, if you all are interested in doing our Bond Accountability Committee at Aloha High School for the February meeting, and we can tour the space while we're out there. Yeah, there we go. Westview High School, similar to Aloha's project of creating a secure entrance for the school. We're doing the same thing at a Westview, although it's quite a bit smaller of a project. You can see kind of the rendering of what it's supposed to look like right there. But this is on track right now for this summer. And we are bringing the guaranteed maximum price proposal to the February board meeting. Don't have that proposal quite done yet. Kind of in the same area that Beaverton's is at this point, but it's getting close and we feel pretty good about where it's at. A couple projects going on here with PE and athletics. At Westview High School, we're constructing this project called Pride Plaza. It's basically a bathroom and concession facility at the stadium field. That will be done by the same contractor who's doing the office work on the front of the facility this summer. That one will go in a little bit into the fall, I think. just due to the size and scope of it. And then Southridge, we already talked about quite a bit, but that one's also coming along. And then outdoor learning, Springville Elementary had a project in the bond to fix their whole courtyard area. If you're not familiar with Springville, it's sort of a U-shaped school, and the courtyard is really largely unusable at this point. And so this is going to be infilling a lot of the interior courtyard with artificial turf to provide a safe, clean play surface for the students. Yes?
Does that estimate include the clean water,
Include
water
what?
retention,
Sorry.
clean water services?
Oh, yes, it does. Yes. This one's good.
Okay.
Yeah,
thank
it's
you.
a little different scenario. It already had, so I mentioned part of the issue with the other schools is how old they were and they didn't have it accommodated already. Springville is a much newer school and it has,
Okay.
it's accommodated there. Seismic upgrades. So Mountain View, we have the GMP amendment already approved for Mountain View and getting ready for that to be going this summer. We're going to be putting a few portables out on site to accommodate the construction that'll take place over the next 2 summers. They're 2 summers plus. I should say they go a little bit beyond the summer, which is why we're going to have the portables there. It's a really heavy logistical project in terms of the footprint within the school. And then Five Oaks, feeling really good about that one. We'll wrap things up there this summer. And modernization, I really don't want to have to go through all the modernization projects. There's tons going on with modernization. It's going on at a lot of schools throughout the district. One of my recommendations here on the last slide will be for us to talk in a little bit more detail about modernization next month. One of the first projects we're doing district-wide for modernization is this tech baseline project, as we're calling it. And we'll be able to see it at Aloha High School when we go out there, the new classroom technology. This is just a snapshot of a new track that'll be going in at Beaver Acres Elementary School. Some furniture, greenway. A whole bunch of stuff. Happy to address any questions on any of these, by the way. New computer lab at Sunset High School. And this is just a quick look at several deferred maintenance projects we have going on. Southridge, we have a really, really big HVAC project happening this summer, basically replacing all of the rooftop units that were original to the building. Some of these things are like the size of school buses. Capitol Center, kind of similar in scope, replacing the rooftop units and then doing quite a bit of work with controls and distribution at the Capitol Center, doing paging at Capitol Center, talked about Southridge turf. Oh no, this is stadium turf. So while we're at Southridge, we'll be replacing the football fields, turf, the stadium field turf. Same thing with Westview. And the tracks at the same time.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
If you do a 1-for-1 replacement for stadium turf, like Westview or Beaverton or Aloha that currently has it, do they have to come in with new retaining water capabilities?
Yep, great question. For the most part, we are not having to add stormwater at the football fields because it's already been done. Most of the turf fields
Already had that runoff?
already had it
Okay.
done at some point, to some extent, at least.
Good.
So, and as you say, it's sort of a maintenance project too, when you're almost just peeling up the top layer and laying it back down, and it doesn't trigger the same requirements. Some security upgrades projects going on. Right now, we're designing some high school card reader projects, and we are also getting ready to do an RFP to select a security vendor to help us with a lot of these security upgrades. Nutrition Services, we're doing kitchen improvements at Greenway. That was scheduled to coincide with Raleigh Hills moving into Greenway, just to make the kitchen more suitable to the occupant load there. And I mentioned we're designing water bottle fillers right now. Okay, I think that was it for this thing. Let's see if I can get out of it. Whoops. Okay, and then Gabby's got a couple slides here.
Today, I will be giving a summary of our engagement platform, Engage BSD, and kind of a bit of an update, essentially where we are from when we started to now. So the district launched Engage BSD, which is a online community engagement platform, back in November of 2022. It houses nearly all of the district's community engagement projects just in one spot, so it's an easy link that people can click and kind of see all of the projects, including bond projects. People can take a few seconds to just register for this platform, but sometimes with surveys, just to make it a little bit easier for people, we take off that requirement, especially kind of like kiddos like middle schoolers. It's a little bit more difficult for them to do that sort of thing. The project pages can include like surveys, just open-ended questions, comments, and polls, kind of like a sticky note sort of situation, and they live there, so people can go and reference just questions that they have on bond projects, for example. We also post survey results on there and additional resources for the community as they're available about projects, so we make sure we do a good job on updating those pages. We have used Engage BSD for the BHS rebuild, Raleigh Hills rebuild, Whitford reimagining, the revamp of Westview's hallways, the Stoller Middle School addition, and the Fir Grove Playground for younger students. For the BHS rebuild, you heard earlier about our hard hat sticker contest. So that actually had more than 1,000 responses. So we had really good engagement from students. They really got into it. I think engaging them also in the classroom and having them submit designs was great because they could follow along on the process. We also had a lot of engagement for Westview's hallways, just kind of like a revamp. So that essentially is just kind of putting a little bit more color and words into Westview's hallways. And if you haven't been in Westview, they're just kind of blank. It's a blank canvas. So we had 671 responses. So essentially, staff picked out a list of words that they would like for the school to be represented and plastered all around the hallways. And then from there, students and staff got to rank and kind of narrow down. So their goal was to get about 5 words, such as like community, listening, respect, as examples. And moving forward, we plan to continue using this platform for feedback on design proposals and other issues. We promote Engage BSD in relation to bond projects on Parent Square, also the bond website and social media. Users can also follow a specific project on Engage BSD, which is really nice, and be alerted when there are updates. But that's basically it. If you all have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Can the committee get a sticker?
Maybe. Once we announce the winner, and then we'll make them available for people.
I believe you have to go through the safety orientation.
Oh, that's
We
right.
can do that.
How could I forget?
I promise someone will sneak on site.
All right. Thank you very much. Oh, yeah, and then I have another slide. So essentially, this is just a breakdown of links to coverage from since the last time the BAC met. So we've had a lot of updates. On X, that's formerly Twitter, for example, the renderings of library furniture at Greenway Elementary, which then came to life. You saw them in the bond report. We have renderings of Westview High School Security Project and renderings of Raleigh Hills. On YouTube, the top link, which we also mentioned throughout the report, was the Brave Committee at Beaverton High School. So if you follow that link, you essentially get a breakdown of the committee, which is really nice, and you get to see some faces that are part of it. And then a construction update at Aloha High School, bond technology modernization, which you will see also at Aloha High School when we meet in February. And we're still posting on LinkedIn, new library furniture at Greenway, new IMAX at Sunset High School. So making sure that industry professionals know what the district is up to. And last but not least, we also have the groundbreaking of Beaverton High School. That's going to be on April 10th at 3. Actually, it's 3:30, I want to say. But you're all invited. You should have received actually today I see some nodding heads. Okay, great. Yeah, I know. That was the first thing I told Aaron. I said, I want to make sure that everybody knows it's not spam. We'll be sending reminders. Obviously, April is a little bit away. When you're planning it, it doesn't feel like it's so far away, right? But for you all, just to make sure you have it on your calendars, and we'd be happy to see you all there. All right, thank you.
And if you haven't watched Gabby's videos on YouTube, you should check them out. They're really good. Definitely a lot better than the type of stuff I could put together. So. And with that, it's done. Are there any questions? Otherwise, I've listed some potential topics for next month. So, like I mentioned, touring Aloha High School I think would be fun. Also, Dick had requested we have someone from Pence coming along and give a presentation on the Raleigh Hills project, kind of like Skanska did a couple months ago, if you recall. And then probably just talk about the project a little bit more and some of the risks they're looking at too. Also technology modernization, as I mentioned. If you don't know what that means, it'll be a good opportunity to check that out and we can see it in place at Aloha High School because I believe they're actually getting installed like next week or something. So it'd be really good timing for that. And I had on here a carryover. Someone had asked about a contracting plan. So that's something we can talk about at some point too. Any other questions or thoughts or anything? Bremick. Bremick. Great. Well. Oh,
Okay,
Casey was
I'm going to give just a brief overview, not necessarily related to the BAC, but just the district, the damage last week during the ice storm. Overall, our district is in pretty good shape. Having said that, over 61 different facilities, we certainly have had our issues. The main school of concern and damage was at West TV Elementary School. Obviously, there's a lot of large fir trees there. We had a tree come down and kind of go through the undercover play area and into the modular there. Also had just a lot of limb damage. We had, because of the power outage and it being an older school, we had some pipes freeze and we were able to get that addressed. But then, of course, as that freeze continued and we repaired the leaks as it thawed, we ran into others. So we had up until last weekend on, Saturday, Sunday, we had plumbers out there getting that thing ready. We have, obviously dealing with a lot of the fallen limbs and trees, working through with our contractors to get those trees evaluated and cleaned up. That was our most significant damage at a school. So there'll be more to come with getting some of those things fixed and evaluated in the near future. We're still right in the middle of that. Other than that, we had a lot of schools with power outages, of course, which caused to some issues with our fire panels connections and talking to our monitoring companies. We had a handful of schools with frozen with water leaks here and there. I guess the next significant one would be at base, where we had a pretty significant water leak that was, of course, very close proximity to the electrical panel and electrical room. It took us quite a while to be able to coordinate with PGE. We had to shut the power off before we could get in that area to actually shut the water off. So that's all being remediated. It's really isolated to a kind of a corner of the building, so not much interruption there. Other than that, just a lot of tree and fence issues and those kind of things on the exterior. Nothing that's super significant across the district. I don't foresee any projects that we would need to, cross over with bond projects for repairs or anything like that. I believe that we're in good enough shape that we'll be able to, make the repairs as needed and do, get ready for the next one, I guess. Any questions that I can answer about just the storm response? Always want to give credit to our maintenance teams. They worked extremely hard, starting really a week ago, Friday night, when we let school out early. They were here Saturday, Sunday, Monday on the holiday, all last week into the weekend. So they worked extremely hard and to try to get our schools back opened, and we did open on this Monday. So any questions that I can answer just about the storm last week and our response?
Thank you, Casey. So the storm, it sounds like we fared much better than Portland Public Schools.
Yeah, well, definitely, they have we have old buildings, they have really old buildings, and, I don't know all the details, but it sounds like a couple of their schools had some really significant water damage where they couldn't get the water off, and, they're gonna be out of school through next month, I believe. We didn't have anything near that. We had a classroom here or there that, we had a pipe freeze and had to move a class to another part of the building or those kinds of things, but it wasn't necessarily a school-wide issue, anything on that scale.
That's good. I heard this morning that at least one of the Portland schools is going on to a video teaching for up to a month or something like that. Not welcome news to the parents, certainly.
Yeah, they've had a rough go with missed school in that.
That's good.
District.
As we go forward and you get a more definitive handle on what the financial impacts for fixing these things, can you let us know if that's going to impact the 2022 budget, either in the maintenance side or contingency?
Oh, yeah, I'll give you some, right? Like I said, I don't anticipate anything. The large scale items we have insurance for, and we are pulling all of that information that we'll be able to share with the board once we get it. It's one of those things that's too fresh right now. We don't have all of the information and the scope and scale yet. We're just trying to kind of dig out from last week and trying to get a real grasp of it now. So we are starting that process of getting all the expenditures and all the damage and everything, so we'll be able to share.
Oh, great. Well, thank you for that.
Yep.
Anything else for the good of the order? Well, thank you all for coming. Reminder, next meeting is on February 28th, Wednesday. And we'll see you all then. Thank you. At Aloha. Thank you.